So on the Nova Talks podcast, we have Serena Mastin. Thank you for coming. And why don't you start off by telling us a little about yourself and what business you run?
So I am the owner of Pulse Marketing. We've been in business for 13 years. Prior to that, I was in corporate doing marketing for 17. I'm also an author of my own book, which is a memoir. And then I've been an author for two different anthologies. And I'm also a strategic partner for EOS implementation.
Amazing. And how would you describe your mission when it comes to marketing in one sentence?
In one sentence, that technology does not replace human connection. And so really understanding the person behind the company is really important. So I would say that's the first part.
Okay. Interesting. How did your childhood dreams influence what you decided to build?
Well, I started my life in witness protection and foster homes. I lived on the streets when I was 15. So my dreams of owning a business was definitely not the vision. It was more my dreams of proving everyone wrong, that I wouldn't become a statistic. And so I would say that's kind of where my dreams started, as a young person that, was introduced to the corporate world. All I wanted to do was wear a business suit. And then I obviously evolved from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like a lot of success comes from dark beginnings, to put it one way, but it leads to some good things. So, what do you think is the main lesson that you learned growing up like that, and how did it lead to the great life that you have now?
So I would say the biggest lesson is to be open to the possibilities and to don't get attached to the outcome, because we have a vision in our minds a lot of times of what we want or what we see or what we think is going to happen. And 90% of the time, something, sideswipes us and we're on a different path. And so just to be open to the idea that not every struggle and not every challenge is to hurt you. It's really to kind of open your perspective and give you a different level of wisdom.
What's a specific failure that you had that felt like the end at first, but then turned out to be one of the most amazing things that you
Oh
could wish?
man, I've had so many of those. Um, I would say when I first started my agency, if we're talking about the business, I was literally, my team started working out of my home office, which just happened to be my loft. And so I had employees actually coming to work every morning, putting their lunch in my refrigerator and coming into the loft, and that's how we worked. And I would say the biggest client that we had at the time was Ford, and they were one of the franchises of Ford, but they were really aggressive. And, at many points in that relationship, it was toxic. And I can see it in my team. I can see it in my culture. We had $100,000 contract on the line. And when I saw how their culture was impacting mine, I fired them as a client. Now, let me just explain. I was working out of my loft. I was not in a position to fire a client that could have brought in not only that 100,000, but multiple, like new business opportunities. But I looked at it like this. I said to myself, what is more important? The experience that I create for the people that are working with me, or growing and dollar signs? And honestly, it's not worth it. And so that was probably the biggest challenge and the scariest thing I've ever done, especially in my like first year of business. But I think it was the best thing I ever did, because it set the stage that we wouldn't tolerate, a certain type of client.
Yeah, that's a strong culture. Very. That's awesome. Where do you think you learned how to be a leader? Was it through books, podcasts, somebody else, experience? What was it?
All of the above. I think that becoming a leader is an evolution. It doesn't just happen. And when I was younger, I thought, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, I'm going to be the best boss, and all these things. Um, it started through self-awareness, and really focusing inward on not just my behaviors, right, but how they were perceived by others. So you have social awareness and self-awareness, right? And I think that was the starting point. That was the foundation. And then the second phase was feedback, being able to accept feedback, even when it's not, from a person that may have a valid point, maybe somebody that is just giving you feedback because they're upset about something. I learned how to accept it in a way that I could use it to improve myself. And then podcasts always come into play, but I would say mentorship, finding people that you are inspired by, and then like a lost puppy, you latch onto them. And I think that is a part of the journey, each of those phases, and then all of them grow simultaneously as you continue to grow in your own wisdom and your own experience.
That's a very good answer. Where did you find all your mentors?
Searched. So I was not the kind of person that was waiting for someone to come find me. I was constantly seeking, like, if I saw someone that I wanted to be like, or if I saw something that I aspired to do, I would start reaching out to everyone that was in that circle to identify, like, how do I become a part of that? And I remember when I met with who's now been my mentor for 8 years, okay, but let me just tell you, the first meeting I had with him, he said, well, you're not qualified to join my group. Your business doesn't make enough. You've only been in business for a few years. Like, you're just not qualified. And I was like, oh, hell no. And I said, if you give me an opportunity, then I'll prove you wrong. And he did. And so I have been with him by his side like a lost puppy for 8 years. And that relationship alone has not only supported me professionally, but also on a personal level, when I just was in some of the darker places, not only in my business, but in my personal life, he was there to lift me up. And if we said no and just walked away from people that turned us down or told us we weren't qualified, um, it would be a real shame because you never really know the outcome of that initial, conversation.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like you have to break some rules and push past a few barriers most people won't in order to actually get up on top.
Yes.
So you're a very positive person, which is awesome. I just see it in the way you talk. So what do you think contributes to that the most? Is it church? Is it your business? Is it your family? What is it?
I would say it's my mindset. Um, I have a philosophy that when you are faced with negative or highly stressful situations, that you have to shift your mindset. You have to be really intentional about it. And so I turn fear into courage. I turn jealousy into appreciation. I turn, like, let's say if it's something like sadness, right? Like, or depression or something that's really powerful and heavy, I turn it into gratitude and appreciation. And I find the things that really matter to take me out of the moment that I feel is weighing over me. And so I would say that's really the biggest part of being positive. And I like to say optimistic, because being positive has a tendency to for you to say, "Oh, this is going to go great," but you don't have a plan, right? Whereas optimistic, you acknowledge that it's not great, but you're going to still find a way to make it better.
Still look for the gratitude and everything. Look to see the gratitude
Yes.
or feel it. Yeah. Okay. So leading that towards your book, I'm sure you talk about that
Uh-huh.
and how parts of your life were hard at first, but then by changing your mindset and the way you thought about it, they became some of the best things for you in the long run, or at least good. So you want to talk a little bit more about why you decided to write that book?
Yeah, so the tipping point for the book, because I had many life experiences where everyone kept saying you need to write a book. And I kept saying, you're crazy. Nobody has time to write a book. Nobody cares about my life story. So the biggest tipping point was I was married for 10 years. My husband worked in the business, and so he was a VP of sales. And although that in the beginning it was amazing and we were the power couple, and on the outside, all the photos and everything just made us look like we were thriving, we got the big office and all the fun stuff. Behind the scenes, he was struggling with mental health issues, multiple infidelities, and addiction. And when you have a partner or a spouse and you have those issues separately without your business, right? It's already all consuming. But imagine now having a partner or a spouse that's working in your business, and you're now having to navigate, how do I protect my team? How do I protect my children? And from, exposing some of the things that he was doing without losing everything. And so I hid. I hid all of these things for a very long time, trying to heal on my own. And then I saw the impact that all of that was not just having on my health, but it was having on my career, my business, my family. And so when I found the courage to leave my husband in October of 2019, in March of 2020, he committed suicide. And so you can imagine that something of that magnitude doesn't just impact one aspect of your life, it impacts every aspect. And the other piece of that component is that I was hiding all those things. No one knew that he had these mental health issues, that he had addiction issues, that he had infidelity issues. So it came to a surprise to a lot of people, at least so I thought. And when all of this unraveled, it was right during COVID, and our office had gotten broken into. They stole $40,000 worth of equipment. It was one of those moments where you just feel like giving up. And at that moment, when I recognized where I was and that this was an opportunity, this wasn't just happening to me, but that I could use it to really as a platform to share my story. That was the tipping point when I started to write the book. It was my healing process. And so that's when it started.
How long after this all happened did you actually start writing?
I would say about 6 months after all of everything fell apart. I was now navigating as a single mom, right? Like I'm a widow, I'm a single mom. I was also navigating the aftermath. So he'd canceled his insurance, so there's 200,000 in medical bills and over 400,000 in debt for the business. So I was navigating all of these different aspects, and I knew that I had to focus on my healing. And so even in the chaos, when everything felt like it was falling apart, I started to use my book as an opportunity to really write down some of those emotions so that I could work through them. And that's how it all started.
Wow. And I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's, I understand why that book can be so valuable to people. So that's great. Taking it back to the business a little bit, what were the biggest changes that you had to make once he was no longer working with you?
So many changes. We got rid of the office, we got out of our lease, we all went remote, we had to reduce expenses. In the last 5 years, we've actually reduced our expenses by 70%, and we're able to pay off 70% of the debt. So it's been insane the amount of work that we've put into restabilizing and rebuilding the company. Um, Another big change is I really looked at my team and allowed them to lead. So instead of trying to fix everything and trying to protect everyone, I came in, forward in a place where I was completely transparent and vulnerable and said I needed help. And they rose up and they carried me through this and ran the agency even when I was in my darkest moments. And so I have to say that that was a really big shift from hiding everything to putting it out there. And they rose up to the occasion. And many of my employees have been with me for 7+ years and are just loyal because they know that I am equally invested in them. And I would say that's a big change. One of the scariest changes was he was a VP of sales. So I like to hide. I like to be behind the scenes. And so I had to look within myself to find the courage to put myself out there. And being on a podcast like this is one of those, face your fear moments. And then also I had to take over sales, which is not something that I'm super comfortable with. So I would say that was a big change that I've had to let go of, some of the negative associated with sales and really look at it based on who I am. And so now I always say I'm looking for people to serve, not people to sell to.
I like that. I like that. If your brand had a day, or they had to create a day, your company, that was a holiday, what would it commemorate, and when would it be?
It would be called the Generosity Day.
Okay. I like that.
And it would be all about volunteering and giving back in some way, shape, or form to invest and empower others.
So it sounds like that's what success looks like for you guys now. It's just giving back and being generous. Is that what it always looked like to you, or when you were younger, it was really fueled by more just like I want to prove people wrong?
No, I think as a young adult, like living on the streets when you have nothing, like when you're bouncing from abandoned houses to park benches, you have to understand that it's more of proving everyone wrong. But as I started in, a corporate world and as I started the agency, I really recognize that my purpose isn't about marketing. It isn't about, the day-to-day business. My purpose is really to empower others for greatness, to nurture those relationships in a way that fosters healing and allows people to find a bigger meaning. And so I do that with our clients, even though I do marketing, I just do it in a different way. And I do that with my team.
That's great. What would be one unconventional interview question that you ask every single person that comes onto your team to make sure they're the right fit?
I do ask a lot of unconventional questions in general. One, one is, what's your spirit animal? Um, One is, like, what's the last book that you read, or what are you passionate about? Um, and then another one is typically hobby related, like what do you love to do? And the reason I ask those questions is because I want to know what really matters to them. Because at the end of the day, a job's a job. But if I can incorporate things that matter to the people that are on my team, then they're going to show up every day and they're going to be excited to be there.
100%. That's great. So you try to add as many things into your company culture as possible that they already like.
Absolutely.
Great. And how big is your team now, by the way?
What was that?
How big is your team now?
So right now there's seven of us. So we were 17, and throughout the past few years, cutting and reducing, we're seven. Um, but I like it. I like it small. The
It's like it's most
17, yeah, as we got larger, it got real complicated. And I feel like we have more of that, you know, um, real connection with the people that we work with and with our clients because we become, an extension of them instead of just a big team and there's multiple people working on different things. So,
yeah, yeah, I feel that. Um, okay, if there was, this is kind of a two-sided question. if there was an opportunity to go 10 years into the past, what's one thing that you would tell yourself that would make the biggest change to you then in
I
a
would
positive?
say, okay, a few things. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm, would be the first thing I would tell myself. Um, and forgiveness doesn't mean tolerance. And I think those would be the two things that I would definitely tell my younger self, because for a long time, I really believed that I had to earn my place. I had to earn love. I had to earn, respect. And there's a certain turning point where you recognize that you don't have to earn it, that those things should come naturally. And if you do have to earn it in a specific situation, it's typically the other person that has a deeper issue that is showing up. So,
And if you could go 10 years into the future and ask one question to that woman, what would it be?
I would say, I don't know if I'd ask her a question, but I would definitely tell her, like, she's a bad bitch.
Yeah, because you know she's going to be. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. And you kind of just want to see how it plays out. That's why you want to ask a question.
Yeah. Like I said in the beginning, be open to the possibilities and don't be attached to the outcome. Everything will come and into place the way it's supposed to, whether we worry or not. All you need is a vision and a purpose. And once you have those two things, everything else will come, fall into place. You obviously need to have action to make that happen. But yeah, I wouldn't have a question, which is interesting.
Yeah, and that's good in a lot of ways. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it and you could get clarity on any part of your business, what would be the one thing that you would want to know more about?
Any part of my business.
Any part of your business, something that you feel like if I could just make it a little bit more clear, it would change things.
That is a good question. I would probably wave that wand over like the sales department, which is currently me. And I would be like, is there like a magical salesperson that I could just put in that role? But I believe that I have clarity on what sales should be, right? And I have milestones and KPIs and metrics and all those things. But I think that's where I struggle the most in my business. And so I would definitely use like that magic wand to create someone that could tell me all the things I don't know.
That's interesting. Is that more on the setting appointments use case, or is it more for closing deals?
I think it's more on like the operational piece. Like, how do you create a full sales team so that you're not the one that's like nurturing, generating, and meeting with every single person, but you just become the one that's more involved with the relationship, right? So I would want someone that could give me a different perspective over how to run a sales team, because that I think is where I struggle the most.
Okay. We may have a magical person, so I'll talk to you after about that.
So
But
save
I'll
that wand.
yeah, exactly. I'll have some more questions. So actually, on the topic, what is one part of your sales process that keeps you up at night? The specific part.
I would say when I'm waiting for someone to sign a proposal, that keeps me up because I'm
Yeah.
excited. But no, what's interesting is once I really started restructuring the agency, I don't allow anything to keep me up at night. I know that sounds like some crazy thing to most entrepreneurs because I lived and breathed like blood, sweat, and tears for a really long time. Um, And so no, I don't lose sleep over it anymore. I just understand that there's going to be feast and there's going to be famine. There's going to be moments where it feels like the world's falling apart, but it's really not. Everything will come together. And so whenever I'm in those dark moments where I feel like I'm anxious or I can't sleep or I really just go inward and identify like what's really causing that, because I've been through this for 13 years. It's going to come around again. Everything's going to be okay, either whether I worry about it or not.
So might as well get some rest.
Yeah, and I like sleep, so it's easy.
Yeah. No, that's true. Because if you're so emotionally attached, and every time it goes like this, you get scared, and then you get happy, and then
I
yeah, you'll
lived
be,
I lived like that for a long time. And what happens is that your body literally gets addicted to the stress. And
yep,
so you're constantly in this fight or flight mode. And after everything kind of fell apart, my body literally shut down because I was in fight or flight mode for 10 years. So I had to relearn how to like why don't I have this crazy amount of energy that I used to have when I was an issue or a problem? Why isn't this fire as big of a deal, right? Like I was starting to worry about why my body was responding in an opposing way. But then I recognized that it was my body, that it was trying to heal itself because I'd put it through so much stress. And then I actually got addicted to the amount of stress. And then all that does is make you a magnet to create more. So I had to unravel that. And I think that's why.
yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if have heard the story about King Solomon,
Yeah,
but
I think I have, but remind me.
you have. So he sent his, I could butcher this, but he sent out his servant, I believe, to find a ring for him. And he had like 2 or 3 months to find the ring before King Solomon's next party. And the ring was supposed to make it so that he wouldn't be so sad. Oh, I'm butchering it already, I can tell. But it was to make sure that King Solomon wouldn't be so sad when bad things happen, and wouldn't be so. No, okay, I'm butchering it. The point of the story is that he found the ring, and the ring said, "This too shall pass." And King Solomon always wore the ring because it helped him understand that when things are going great, this too shall pass. And so, don't get too excited because then it'll be a big fall. And when things are going bad, this too shall pass. Don't get too sad because there's no reason to. You might as well stay happy.
Yes. There's a better story. It's a proverb. And
You'll
it's
tell
about
that.
the farmer. So there's a farmer, and like a horse got loose and ran into his farm, and the neighbors were like, "Oh my gosh, you must have good fortune. You look at this horse that you just got." And he said, neither here nor there, right? Like you never know. Well, his son got on top of the horse, and the horse kicked him off, and his son lost his ability to walk. And the neighbor said, "Oh, you must have, what bad fortune do you have?" Right? And the farmer says, like, "It's neither here nor there, just we'll see." And then the military came because there was a war that started, and they were going to take his son and put his son into war, but he couldn't because his legs were broken. And the neighbor said, "What good fortune you have." And he said, "This too, you never know." So the beauty in that is that you don't know the outcome. And King Solomon or the farmer, either one. I love that type of story because it's so true. Those moments where we think that we're falling apart, it might just be that we're creating a chapter in a story that somebody needs to hear.
That was very well said, and it's very literal when you say it. So I like that. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just like the market, right? You buy when it's low. That's when you should invest the most and be the most happy because that's when it's going to go up. That's how ebbs and flows work. So there's a lot to be said there. Going a little bit more into AI, I want to talk about that real quick because it's very big and I'm associated with it as well. So if well, first, are you currently using AI for any part of your business right now?
Yes. So we use AI for a lot of things. Um, but we use it in a way that doesn't replace the emotional, human intelligence, or connection piece. We use it to be more efficient. We use it to do research. We use it for outlines, but when it comes to understanding the customer and their audience, we use it as an outline. We don't use it to replace um, the actual work.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some companies that will build everything with AI, specifically marketing companies. So I'm very glad you don't do that.
Yeah,
They'll generate everything with AI and then wonder, I wonder why this is not working so much better than our competitors. So I wonder, right?
yeah. And you have to remember that experience has to like come into play with different industries and different audiences, that AI is going to pull information from the internet, but it may not be the right sourcing for that particular like client. So you have to be skeptical when using it, but you can use it as a tool. You don't use it to replace something else.
Yes, I preach that everywhere I go. It should be an addition that helps efficiency. And there's been plenty of studies when people work less in some jobs, they get way better output. So in those
Yes.
places, that can be used to make a big difference. But yeah, it should supplement people. So what's the most excited, or what's the kind of AI that you're most excited about for the future of marketing agencies?
Oh, that is a broad one. I mean, like, I think it's the silly things for me. I know most people would have this profound answer, but I love it for the fact that when my team was stuck searching for 1 million stock images and they couldn't find one that really went with this client target audience, that they can just say, I want this image and I want you to create it and I want them to be wearing this color. I have to say that from a simplistic point, um, that is the one thing that I got really excited about because it was hours of time when you don't have photography for a client, but you have to make something work. And so for that, I would say that's my favorite.
Yeah,
Don't be
yeah, the
judging
image.
me.
No, I'm not judging you. No, I'm looking. Yeah, because I do it too. It just needs to be a supplement. That's what's important. As long as there's a
Yes.
human who has the
I
right
don't
vision.
want, yeah, and I don't typically say, make me this. I will have them show me the images they're thinking, and then I'll say something like, combine this with these colors and this style. Don't make it look like a robot
Right.
or, or an avatar. I want it to look real. So
No,
that's
that's
the
important.
beauty.
What
Yeah.
I was referring to before is that I've seen companies where they'll get a client, they'll put the client's information in GPT and say, "Hey, make me like tell me what to actually do because I don't know what I'm doing. So tell me
Yeah.
what kind of ad to make. Okay, ChatGPT, now make this ad. Okay, now show me how to put it on Facebook. And when you do that, you're not going to get the best results. Let me tell you.
No.
But using it to supplement the skill that you already have is very powerful.
Yes.
Um, was there any internal resistance to adopting AI within your team?
I think it was more fear, not resistance. And I think the fear really stemmed from the do-it-yourself type of companies that no longer need an agency or no longer need, these positions. The fear for my team was really like, is this going to replace me? And I think the way we really overcame that is I had them go in, and one of their milestones was to research multiple platforms, that they think could be used in their role, to test them and then find one that they wanted to present to the team. And so it actually shifted the fear and made them excited about it. And it like really pushed them through to this whole nother level where they're like my web designer is like, oh my gosh, when I'm having a problem trying to figure out a code or why it's not working, now like ChatGPT was able to help me figure out this code, right? Or a tool that we're using for analytics and reporting. Now it's just so much easier, right? So I think that was the beautiful part is I truly believe that when you're afraid of something, you face it head on. You don't run the opposite direction, you run right towards it. And so I think that was a big obstacle when AI buzz started coming around, was people felt like they were going to be replaced. And we have a people first mentality. And so I had to kind of identify a way to make sure that they embraced it.
I think that's a great way. You kind of make a game out of it, make it fun.
Yeah.
So, last two questions here.
Okay.
One, if you could give a single, I know this is generic, but it's important. So, if you give a single piece of advice to anybody who wants to be successful, specifically in your industry as a marketing agency, what would that piece of advice be?
I would say be agile and versatile. You're always going to be shifting and changing. You're always going to face, uh, different types of obstacles and challenges. And marketing is never a stable environment. It's always growing. So just be open to learning, and whoever you are, no matter how many years of experiences that you never have all of the answers. So be open to learn and to be curious.
Awesome. And finally, if this may overlap a little bit, but if you could give one piece of advice to anybody who wants to be successful in life, what would that be?
Oh, it's similar, but I would say for life, there's a few other pieces, right? Yes, be agile. Yes, be curious. Um, but I would say create your personal values and memorize them and live by them. Because a lot of times we get pulled in so many different directions that we have a tendency to kind of morph into who we surround ourselves with instead of being who we are. And once we identify what those values are and what really um, is a representative of who we are, that allows us to evolve in every situation. And so I would say identify your values, focus inward, because you're always the only person that you can change. You can't change anyone else. And be agile, because that's a part of life. You have to move and work in all different situations.
That's great advice. And Serena, where can everyone find you and your book and any other social media profile that you have?
So my agency is at pulsemarketingteam.com. And if you're just trying to find my book or things about me, serenamastin.com is my author website. And you can find me basically anywhere else on any social profile just by looking for Pulse Marketing Team or Serena Mastin. I'm not hard to find.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming to Nova Talks. And this was a great podcast.
Thank you.
Awesome.